The night I was pulled over by a cop who was never on the force. A late-night traffic stop on an empty American highway feels wrong from the start, with flashing lights but no radio call or badge number to verify. The cop asks strange personal questions, avoids dispatch, and pushes the victim to step out of the car near a dark forest road. The truth hits when real police arrive later and confirm no officer was ever assigned to that area that night. It was close to midnight when the highway started to feel endless, the kind of American road that stretches on forever, cutting through cornfields and forgotten exits. And honestly, I was just trying to get home after a long shift, coffee cold, eyes burning, radio low, when out of nowhere blue lights exploded in my rear-view mirror, and my stomach dropped because nothing good ever comes from getting pulled over that late, especially out there. So I slowed down, checked my speed, checked my mirrors, thinking maybe I'd drifted or missed a sign, yet something felt off right away, a quiet wrongness hanging in the air, because the road was empty, no houses, no gas stations, no other cars, just darkness and the hum of tires, and still, I did what anyone would do, pulled over, turned off the engine, hands on the wheel like you're taught, waiting for the officer to come up, except he didn't. Not at first. The lights kept flashing, lighting up the trees and the road in sharp, violent colors. Minutes passed, 1 minute, 2, 3, long enough for my heart to start racing, long enough for doubt to creep in. And when the door finally opened and footsteps crunched behind me, I noticed the car didn't look right. The paint was dull, almost matte, like it had absorbed the dark, and the number on the side was scratched out, not worn, but deliberately scraped, like someone didn't want it seen. And then the man appeared at my window, tall, too still, wearing a uniform that looked real at first glance but wrong the longer I stared. The badge was there but didn't shine. His hat sat too low, hiding his eyes, and when he spoke, his voice was flat, rehearsed, like he'd practiced it in front of a mirror, evening. He said no name, no reason for the stop, just that single word, and I waited for the rest, the routine questions, license, registration. But instead he leaned closer, way too close, and asked if I was alone, not where I was going, not if I knew why I was stopped, just that, alone, and a chill ran straight through me because that's not how it goes. Everyone knows that. Cops follow procedure, they're predictable, and this guy wasn't. So I answered carefully, yes, alone, and tried to glance at his car again, noticing there was no computer glow inside, no radio chatter, just darkness, and when I asked why I was pulled over, he paused just a second too long, then said my taillight was out, except I'd checked them earlier, and something about the way he said it, casual but forced, made my skin crawl, and as he stepped back, I noticed his hands, no gloves, but they were dirty. Road, dirty, more like soil, like he'd been digging, and the smell hit me then, damp earth mixed with something metallic. And I told myself to stay calm, not to jump to conclusions. People are weird. Nights play tricks on you. But still, I reached for my phone, pretending to check the time. And that's when he snapped, not yelling, but sharply telling me to put it down, that officers don't like distractions, and my heart started pounding because real cops don't say it like that. They don't sound threatened by a phone, and when he walked back to his car, I watched closely, expecting him to call it in to speak into a radio, but he didn't. He just stood there, back turned, motionless, like a mannequin, the lights still flashing. And I swear, for a moment, they flickered, not in a mechanical way, but uneven, like they were struggling to stay on. And that's when the fear really set in. The deep kind, the kind that tells you you're not dealing with a traffic stop anymore. You're dealing with something else, something pretending. And when he came back, instead of handing anything back, he asked me to step out of the car, said it was safer, gesturing toward the tree line, and I looked around, realizing how far I was from anything. No signal bars on my phone, no sounds but insects and the ticking of my engine cooling, and every instinct screamed no, don't do it. But there I was, door unlocked, seatbelt off, trapped between what I was taught to obey and what my gut was begging me to refuse, and as I cracked the door open, the flashing lights reflected off the dark forest, and for just a split second, I thought I saw movement behind his car, like shadows shifting where nothing should be. And in that moment, standing halfway out of my car on a deserted American highway, I understood that this wasn't a normal night. This wasn't a normal cop. and whatever had pulled me over didn't feel human at all. When I finally stepped out of the car, the night seemed to close in around me, the air thick and heavy like it didn't want witnesses, and the fake cop stood a few feet away, watching too closely, smiling just a little too late. And that's when the questions started, not the normal ones you expect, but personal ones, the kind that crawl under your skin, asking where I lived, if anyone was expecting me, how long it would take before someone noticed I was gone, and every answer felt like a mistake, every word hanging in the cold air longer than it should. And when I hesitated, he tilted, his head studying me like a problem to be solved, his eyes finally visible under the hat, dark and empty, no curiosity, no authority, just hunger. And I noticed then how quiet it was, no passing cars, no distant engines, not even wind, like the world had paused just for us. And when I tried to shift the conversation back, asking for his name or badge number, his smile vanished instantly, replaced by something sharp and annoyed. And he said he didn't need to give that information, not out here, not at this hour, which made no sense, none at all. And I felt the fear rising, hot and fast. Because real cops want compliance, they don't dodge accountability. And when I glanced toward his cruiser again, hoping to see some sign of legitimacy, I realized there was still no radio noise, no dashboard lights, nothing, just an empty shell with flashing lights like bait. And he noticed me, looking, stepping in front of my view, blocking it deliberately, asking if I'd ever been in trouble before, if I'd ever lied to the police, and the way he said police, like it was a word he'd learned recently, made my stomach twist. And then he told me to move closer to him, said he needed to check something, gesturing toward the edge of the road where the forest began, and the trees there weren't just dark. They were dense, tangled, swallowing the light, and I hesitated, feet planted, heart hammering, telling him I'd rather stay by my car. And that's when his voice changed, dropping low, slow, threatening without raising volume, saying he didn't like disobedience, saying it never ended well, and suddenly the authority felt fake, like a costume slipping, revealing something ugly underneath. And I realized he hadn't written anything down, hadn't taken my license, hadn't checked plates, nothing about this stop followed logic. It was all stalling, all probing, and I remembered stories, warnings about unmarked cars, fake uniforms, predators who learned the rules just enough to twist them. And my hands started shaking as I backed toward my door, pretending to comply while my mind raced, thinking of ways out. But he stepped closer again, invading my space, and I caught another whiff of that smell, earth and metal, stronger now. And I noticed his boots were muddy, not roadside muddy, but deep, thick mud like from a riverbank or a shallow grave. And when I asked him to call it in to confirm the stop, his eyes narrowed and he laughed softly, a sound that didn't belong in a human throat, telling me dispatch was busy, that no one was coming. And that's when panic hit full force, because the highway suddenly felt like a trap. The lights flashing like a signal to something else, and he reached toward my arm, fingers cold, gripping tighter than necessary, telling me to step away from the car, saying it was for my safety. And I pulled back hard, my voice shaking as I said no. And for a moment, just a moment, his face slipped, the mask cracking, his expression twisting into something angry and impatient. And I saw it then, a thin scar running down his neck, jagged and old, like a rope burn. And before I could process it, headlights appeared in the distance, faint but real, cutting through the dark, and he froze, releasing me instantly, stepping back like he'd been burned. And in that second, the question stopped, the act dropped, and he moved fast, too fast, retreating toward his cruiser, the smile gone, the confidence evaporated. And as another car passed slowly on the opposite side of the highway, he turned off the flashing lights, plunging the road into darkness, and when they came back on, just as suddenly, his car was gone, no engine sound, no tire noise, nothing, like it had never been there at all, leaving me standing alone, shaking beside my car, realizing that whatever that thing was, it wasn't just pretending to be a cop, it was hunting, testing, waiting for the moment no one would interrupt. And I knew then that if I'd taken one more step toward those trees, this story wouldn't be getting told. I didn't drive right away after it vanished. My legs felt weak, hands numb on the steering wheel, and for a long moment I just sat there on the side of the highway, engine idling, staring at the empty road where flashing lights had been seconds before, trying to convince myself it had been stress, imagination, exhaustion, anything but what it felt like, and eventually forcing myself to breathe. I pulled back onto the road and drove until I hit the first gas station miles later. Lights bright, people inside, the kind of place that feels safe just because it's loud and ordinary. And that's when the shock really hit, because once I started talking, once I tried to explain to the cashier why my hands were shaking, the details came spilling out, and they didn't sound crazy. They sounded precise, too precise to ignore, so I called 911, told them I'd been pulled over by an officer on Highway 47 about 20 minutes back, gave the location, described the car, the uniform, the way he acted. And there was a pause on the line, a long one, the dispatcher typing, checking, asking me to repeat the mile marker. And when she came back, her voice had changed, calm but careful, telling me to stay where I was because no units had reported a traffic stop in that area all night. Not city police, not county, not state troopers, nobody, and my stomach dropped again. Harder this time, because hearing it confirmed made it real in a way fear alone never could. And when officers arrived at the gas station, real ones, marked cars, body cams, radios buzzing nonstop, they listened closely, asked me to describe everything again, and the more I talked, the more they exchanged looks, the kind that says there's more they're not telling you, and one of them finally admitted that this wasn't the first call like this, that over the years there had been reports along that same stretch of road. Drivers pulled over late at night by someone claiming to be law enforcement, asking the same questions, pushing people to step away from their vehicles, always near the trees, always disappearing before backup could arrive. And here's the part that made my blood run cold. Every report described a uniform that didn't quite match the department, a cruiser with no clear markings, and a badge number that never checked out. And when I asked if they thought it was the same person, some sick impersonator who'd never been caught, one of the older officers shook his head slowly and said they'd searched for years, run plates that didn't exist, chased radio signals that led nowhere, even set up patrols, but nothing ever turned up, no suspects, no evidence, just stories. And then he told me something they don't put in reports, that decades ago, a state trooper had died on that road during a late night stop, hit and dragged into the woods, never officially solved. His body found days later, uniform torn, badge missing, and the case went cold. And ever since then, strange calls kept coming in, always late, always isolated, always the same description. And I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because my mind refused to accept what that implied, and the officer didn't correct me, didn't try to rationalize it, just told me I was lucky, that whatever I encountered had been interrupted. And when I asked why some people never reported it, why there weren't more official records, he said because some people never made it to a gas station, some people were found days later in places they shouldn't have been, written off as accidents, exposure, wrong place, wrong time, and suddenly the questions from that fake cop replayed in my head, asking if anyone was expecting me, how long it would take to be noticed, and the weight of that realization nearly crushed me, because it meant I hadn't been randomly stopped. I'd been chosen, evaluated, measured, and barely slipped through, and before they let me leave, they drove me back to the spot, just to document it, and standing there with real officers, floodlights on, radios crackling. The place looked normal, empty road, quiet trees, nothing out of place except one thing, deep in the dirt by the shoulder. Half hidden by grass, there were footprints, heavy boot prints leading from the road straight into the forest, not coming out, just going in. And nearby, pressed into the mud, was an impression shaped like a badge, and no one said a word about it. They just took photos and moved on and on. Drive home, I kept checking my mirrors, every set of headlights making my chest tighten, because once you've seen how easily something can wear authority like a mask, you never trust flashing lights the same way again. And even now, years later, whenever I'm driving alone at night and see red and blue lights behind me, I don't pull over right away. I slow down, call it in, look for a populated area, because somewhere out there, on a dark American highway, something is still pretending to protect and serve, waiting for the road to be empty enough, the night quiet enough, and the driver alone enough to make one small mistake that they never come back from.